FM Paul Daddy's BlindHawg Barbecue, and today it's all about brisket on my Goldie's Backyard Smoker. Now I'm going to be incorporating what I consider to be some of the best brisket practices that I've gathered a little here and a little there, and today I'll put them all together when we're cooking this brisket. The basic overview is to inject with Cosmos Q Reserve Blend Brisket Injection, give that injection time to work its magic, and then we're going to layer on a couple of different rubs. Now it's going to be low and slow to start with. I'm even using a little automation to control the pit temperatures. Eventually we're going to ramp up that temperature just a bit, and then we're going to hold it overnight, just like they do in the big Texas barbecue joints that they're all famous for, and it's going to be fantastic. This brisket is a whole untrimmed packer style brisket that I picked up at my local HEB grocery store right here in Texas. You want to open it up, we're going to look it over. It's got a few gashes in it from the butcher, but overall not too bad, so just dry it off. And today we'll just be giving it what I consider a moderate backyard trim. It's mainly just shaping it up a bit. We're going to remove some of the extra fat, and then I save all the trimmings, and eventually I'll make a batch of sausage out of it. But what you do with your trimmings, that's up to you. Now you can always render it down for beef tallow. Over on the meat side, now I'm not going to be going after all that silver skin like the competition guys do. Now some barbecue restaurants go after it and others don't worry about it. Now if you can't sleep at night because of that silver skin, then by all means you get after it. So we'll also take off some of that mohawk area. That'll make it more uniform in thickness, and therefore it's going to lay a lot flatter, and it should cook more evenly. With a moderate trim on the brisket, it's more aerodynamic. It promotes better airflow over it. So once again, dry it off if needed. Now I promised an injected brisket, and that's what I'm going to do. Just so you know, Cosmos Q sent me out some Reserve Blend Brisket Injection to try. So I'll be mixing up 1/3 of a cup of the Reserve Blend along with 3 cups of beef broth. You could just use plain old distilled water, but I like to use beef broth. Now, lucky for me, Cosmos Q also sent out a mixing cup that's absolutely perfect for mixing up your injection when you're making that secret sauce. So, add 3 cups of beef broth along with 1/3 cup of the powder. And that cup comes with a little baffle that fits near the top of the cup, and that helps with the agitation. And the lid's secure because it screws on. So I love this cup. And then you just shake everything up and it mixes right up, and then you're ready to suck it up into that injector. Now I'm using my Spitjack Magnum meat injector gun. Now I bought and paid for this myself, and it's a great system. And the injection gun, I've got it set to 5 cc's, and you try to inject as you pull the needle out. And a brisket injection for the benefit of the brisket flat. That's the lean part. Now, if you've got enough marinade left over, then and only then you'd inject some in the point. The point, or the decal area, now that's got a lot of fat, and by default, it's normally going to be moist enough already. Now, when we talk about us barbecue guys as a group, pit masters, can't even agree whether it's best to cook a brisket fat side up or fat side down, so they certainly don't agree on everything else. They don't agree on how to inject a brisket. You can go with the grain or you can go across the grain. Well, how do I feel about it? I feel strongly both ways. We're going to be working from the meat side, and I'm going to go in all directions. We're going to be injecting 5 cc's as you pull the needle out. Injecting a brisket can be messy, so it's best to wear some gloves and to use a pan to catch some of that liquid. Try to cover the needle with your gloved hand as you're pulling the needle out. The Spitjack and the Cosmos mixing cup, now that's the right tools for getting this job done. And with the right tools, the fun factor goes straight up. Now once you're done injecting, then you want to dry it off. And then next I'm going to be wrapping it up in press and seal. You can use saran wrap if that's what you got. Now it needs some time in the refrigeration. It needs some rest time. It needs to let that Reserve Blend do its thing. So I think 8 hours is probably the sweet spot when it comes to resting it, but I'm going to be doing it a bit longer today because that fits my time schedule. Now, if you got it in a tub like this, if that'll go in your fridge, then that's what you do. You're all set. But tonight, I'm going to be keeping this one in an ice chest overnight, so the tub's really too big for that. Now I will be back in the morning. We'll be ready to start the fire. Okay, that injected brisket has been in the ice all night, so the first thing I'm gonna do is light off one full chimney full of charcoal today, using B&B charcoal briquettes. And I like to use my propane torch to start my fires. And that brisket needs to be warming up a bit, so let's set it out and unwrap it and then dry it off. Since I'm in Texas, we are smoking fat side up. The presentation side's gonna be that fat side. And with that in mind, then we want to season the meat side first. Turn it meat side up. Here I'm using a Goldie's barbecue bottle, but the actual rub that's in there, it's the homemade version of Goldie's. This is my basic recipe for a version of their rub. 2 parts number 16 black pepper, 1 part light gray Celtic sea salt, and 1 part Lowry seasoned salt. And I'm not saying that Goldie's uses Celtic sea salt, I'm saying that my version of their recipe does. Goldie's actually seasons with 3 separate ingredients, and they do it in this order. They go black pepper, they go salt, and then they use the seasoned salt. This version is made with the correct ratio, but it needs to be constantly mixed by shaking it up so you can maintain that correct proportion. And that ratio just happens to be 2 parts black pepper, 1 part kosher salt, and 1 part Lowry seasoned salt. Season up the meat side, and they use less rub on that side than they do the fat side. I always use a binder, but since we injected this one today, I'm gonna skip that binder part. And unless you just insist, you can skip it too. Got a lot of extra moisture in it because we injected it. So some of that seeps out onto the surface. Now that can serve as your binder. And the last I heard, Goldie's and a lot of these other restaurants, they ignore seasoning the sides. The theory is that black pepper promotes bark formation, and so it attracts heat. And some people maintain that the rub on the sides can cause the sides to dry out too quickly. I'm not gonna be putting rub on the sides. It kind of feels unnatural, but that's the way we're gonna do it today. Now, I mentioned that I'd be layering the rubs today, and since Cosmos Q sent me out some honey chipotle killer bee rub, then that's going on the second pass. Now that looks good. Now flip it over. Give the fat side a good dose of the 2-1-1 rub, and then it needs a much deeper coating than the meat side got. Just like the previous side, get out that Cosmos Q honey chipotle killer bee rub, and then give it a good seasoning on the fat side. Let it just sit there coming up to room temperature, let it sweat in that rub for a while. While we're waiting, that charcoal chimney's heating up. And when that charcoal chimney is ready, then dump it in the firebox. During this part, you want to wear some thermal protection, like leather gloves. I'm adding 3 logs in the firebox. They'll be going parallel to each other. They're also parallel to the firebox. Don't want much space in between them. We want to run a 200 to 225 degree Fahrenheit temperature, and it should be an open flame fire. Now, we don't want a smoldering fire. We want an open flame. But since the low and slow temps generate more smoke, then make sure that you don't let that smokestack damper restrict the flow too much. We don't want to have it stuck in the cook chamber. We want good airflow moving through that pit. Now, I'm not going to be too concerned about the quality of smoke as long as we keep it moving. Now, for this video, I will mention that I have installed on this pit a fan adapter that goes into the firebox. So I can use a Barbecue Guru 25 CFM fan in conjunction with my Fireboard 2 Pro controller to manage the fire temperatures. Basically, you got a computer running the fan, and that blows hot air into the firebox. So it works well, especially at lower temperatures. But as you increase the temps, if you get above 250, then it requires more tension, more adjustments. I think using dual fans would probably help out a lot, or I could just not use the fan at all during this part. We'll see how it works out. Now, you certainly don't have to have a fan on an offset, and some people claim that it detracts from their overall experience. But to me, I'll say it enhances my overall experience, especially on these long cooks. So for now, we're cooking at 200, 225 degrees Fahrenheit. We're doing that for the next 3 hours. There's a barbecue joint in Montgomery, Texas called Bar A BBQ, and they use a version of this low and slow start to their cooks. and I believe they refer to it as cold smoke, and they have had great success with it. So we're doing 3 hours low and slow. Now you could do more, you could do less. Make it fit your schedule. One of the benefits of using the low and slow technique like this is whatever you're smoking can have better collagen breakdown, more smoke flavor, more even cooking, and it should have better bark formation. Now, one other thing you might notice during the cook is that I have 3 racks of baby back ribs along for the ride. Now, they're really not the star in this video, the brisket is. Generally, I don't like to open up the smoker every 2 seconds, but since we're adding the ribs to the cook, well, it kind of complicates that part a bit. You got to do what you got to do. Whenever you're done with the low and slow part, then just start gradually working that temperature up to 250 degrees Fahrenheit and slowly increasing your temperature up to 275 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, one factor that I've not mentioned, and it's that I'm primarily basing my temperature readings from the digital probe that's connected to the Fireboard 2 Pro. Now, I'm not totally disregarding the tail-tooth thermometer, but it will typically run hotter than the probe at the grate level. Now, we've left that low and slow phase, and now as the brisket internal temperature begins to rise, I do like to keep a watch on the bottom of the brisket, and when that area starts getting right, and this is just going to be a judgment call, well, I'm going to use my insurance policy to protect the bottom of that brisket. Simply put, I'll protect it with a piece of foil. So this is what it looks like. Yeah, it looks like the foil boat. Now look, I don't even know the rules for using the foil boat, but to me it's just a piece of heavy duty foil protecting the bottom of my brisket. You can call it a foil boat if you want to. So using the foil to shield parts is nothing new. Many pit masters have been doing this as part of their routine over the years. It's an effective tool to have at your disposal. Now our fire is 275 degrees plus and that brisket is stalled, but we're gonna just have to ride it out. So what is my final destination temperature and how did I decide on that? Well, in the past I've done some experiment with the 4-2-10 brisket method, and roughly speaking that would be 4 hours at 225, 2 hours at 285, and then 10 hours between 150 and 190. Now the temperatures vary depending on who you talk about the 4-2-10 method, but the general method is the same. Now the part of the 4-2-10 that I really like is that 10-hour hold. And the truth is you're not limited to just 10 hours. You can go 16, 17 hours under the right conditions. It's a fact that fat starts rendering at 140 degrees Fahrenheit, collagen's breaking down at 160 degrees Fahrenheit. So the extended hold time, it has the ability to make your brisket even better. So if you're talking about making your brisket better, then count me in. I think the extended hold time has been pioneered and born out of necessity. Texas barbecue joints have been wildly successful and some even cook more than 100 briskets a week. And of course they're started dozens of hours before they were served. With the sheer volume of briskets they're dealing with, and they really know their stuff. Now some go by feel, not by temperature, and they claim the range starts at about 195 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, I've had a brisket in the past that I felt was starting to get kind of mushy, and it was an injected brisket. So everything has a point of diminishing returns, and eventually you run out of time. 16 to 17 hours is in the neighborhood where you have to start thinking hard about that hold time. The higher your holding temperature, then the quicker you're running out of time. And also you got to factor in the USDA safe food danger zone range is 40 degrees Fahrenheit up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Anything in between there is in the danger zone. Now, and that's all provided that you've already met the minimum safe internal temperature for the particular protein that you're cooking. So considering all these things, this brisket's coming off the smoker at 195 degrees Fahrenheit. And I know that it's extremely tender because of how it probes like butter. Taking it off at 195, it'll give it some added holding time that I don't have to worry about. So I don't know exactly how much added time I'll be gaining by pulling it at 195. I just know I'm getting some more. And the holding temperature that I decided on is 145 degrees. Now 140 degrees Fahrenheit is right on the edge of the danger zone, so 145 is a safer choice. Now after 12 hours, 15 minutes, the ThermalWorks blue dot, it sounded the alarm that brisket is indeed at 195 degrees Fahrenheit. Double check it with the thermopin. It's 195 degrees Fahrenheit. Then I grab my oversized stainless steel barbecue spatula and I transfer that brisket to another piece of foil. Now for the holding period, the brisket will be wrapped in foil, 18-inch wide, heavy duty foil. 1/2 cup of Wagyu beef tallow goes on that foil. The brisket sits on top of the Wagyu, and don't worry about it, it's gonna melt. Pour the drippings from that sheet of the first foil, that sheet that's not a foil boat, you pour that over the top of the brisket. Now you could get by with a single sheet of foil, but mine, it was just a little bit short, so I had to double it up. And the wrapped brisket's transferred over to my Easy Bake Oven, which is in reality a very good electric smoker. It's an American-made Coockshack Amerique. I've owned this smoker since 2010, never had a single issue with this smoker. It does a great job, and I use it as a warming oven. Didn't buy it as a warming oven, but that's where we are today. All right, I'll be back here sometime tomorrow morning, and we'll evaluate the results. Okay guys, I am back, and that brisket's made it overnight. It's been holding a temperature of 145 degrees all night. I already know it's tender, so let's slice it up. Yep, it's got a great smoke ring. This thing is fork tender, it's moist, and most important, it tastes great. Now this is where that Cosmos Q brisket injection shows up, right here in the finished product. That flat is perfect and very moist. Like I said, this is a backyard cook, and since I've never had family or guests do the bend test or pull test, I don't worry about those things. So know your audience, you cook for them, you cook for their needs, don't cook for your ego. Now, if you run with an advanced group of competition guys, then all means cater to their needs. Keep in mind, most family and friends, they'll appreciate and they'll remember fork tender, and they don't know and they don't care about your bend test. This cook turned out to be a great cook. I received a lot of real positive feedback, and I'm sure you can too if you incorporate some of these methods into your next cook. Now, all you got to do is hit that like button on your way out. Please consider subscribing, and I hope to see you next time at Paw Daddy's BlindHawg Barbecue.